Okay, I am very excited about my next guest, a legendary guest, in my opinion, someone different. I actually have a referee, a NFL referee here. So you know we're going to have a lot to talk about. 31 years as a ref. He is known as the Dean of Referees, and he has ref some classic games. And we're going to go talk about that. His book is entitled It's the Will, Not the Skill. Interesting title. Let me bring on right now, and it's an honor to have this gentleman here, Jim Tunney. Jim, how are you?
Steve, that's fine.
It is an honor to have you on. It
Thank
is
you.
different. I've had Super Bowl championship players on, former NFL players. You're the first ref, and it's a pleasure to talk to you instead of what I used to do when I watch you on TV making these calls against my team or any team, and I'll be saying, "What are you doing? What are you calling? How can you make that call? Are you crazy?"
Steve, you can't use that kind of language on the air.
Oh God, you had a fascinating career from 1960 to 1990, and it's amazing in all types of weather. You did three Super Bowls. You're the first referee to do back-to-back Super Bowls, which was Super Bowl 11 and 12, and you were an alternative in Super Bowl 18. What was those experiences like? When in doing a Super Bowl, how did they select who gets to ref those games, the biggest game of the year? What is the process?
For a long time, a lot of the officials, including me, thought that they had a big dartboard in the NFL office and they threw your name on a dart. If you stuck where you get to work the game, but that's not the real truth. The real truth is that they evaluate you every Sunday. Every Sunday afternoon, the camera follows you around in everything you do. The time you walk on the field to the time you finish, every call you make, every call you don't make, every position you're in, every position you're not in is evaluated on film. And they look at that film, they look at that tape now, that videotape. They look at it during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they evaluate you on a scale of 1 to 7.
Hmm.
If you do 7, you're doing a great job. Very few times you get sevens. They don't like to give sevens because that looks like you're perfect. They don't want you to think you're perfect. But on the evaluation system, then the computer grades you out at the end of the year, and if you come up near the top, first or second in line, you get the Super Bowl. And though when I got my first Super Bowl in 1972, Super Bowl six, we played between the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins. Supervisor officials, Mark McNally, called me about 3 days before, and about 10 days before, and he said, "You got it." I said, "I got what?" He said, "You got the Super Bowl." That was the first one, and the thrill was just exciting for officials as it is for players to work the Super Bowl. That's the goal. That's the ultimate uh, reward for working all year long.
Mm. How surprised were you when you realized you're doing back-to-back Super Bowls? You did Super Bowl 11, and then how surprised were you when you realized you're going to do Super Bowl 12?
Well, never been done before, Steve. It was a great time to be able to. He called and said, "You're in Super Bowl 12, which was Dallas and Denver played in the Superdome. It was the first game played indoors, by the way. They never played one indoors until that game." And when he called and got the assignment, I was surprised. In fact, if we'll back up a little bit, when I did Super Bowl 11,
Uh-huh.
I said to Art McNally, I said, after the game, I said, how do you get this job? How do you get the assignment? And he told me, as I told you, evaluation all year long. And he said, "You finished out number one." And so I said, "I want to finish out number one again next year." Well,
Mhm.
now whether I did or not, I don't know, but I did get the second Super Bowl in a row. And it's not been happening to a referee. The person in the referee position is a white hat. It has happened to other officials in other positions, but never to the referee. It hadn't happened to anybody at that point. And I was very surprised and very honored to be able to do a back-to-back Super Bowl. So it was a great, it was a great thrill to work in the National Football League. Every Sunday afternoon, people say, "What's the what's the best game you ever worked?" I said, "No place I'd rather be at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon than on a football field with my hand over my heart, standing for the national anthem, and then walking on the field and tossing the coin and working the game. That's an exciting time for me." And I did about 500 NFL games in my career.
Amazing. Amazing. Now, when I was doing the research, I see that you was the first referee to be named to the All Madden team.
Yeah, how about that?
How wild was that? I mean, John Madden actually recognized a referee, for God's sake. Oh my God. When you
I
got
would.
the word, how did you feel?
It was great because, of course, I'd known Coach Madden all the time, and he was an assistant. And then when he was head coach of the Raiders, I'd worked on the field with him, and he'd yelled at me and called me names and talk about the fact that my mother and father were never really married and things like that.
He would
And
say that?
he, Coach uses that kind of language, Steve, all the time. And but we got along very well. In fact, I wrote a book. The first book I wrote was called Impartial Judgment,
Uh,
and it was my 31 years in the NFL. And I devoted a whole chapter to John McNabb. I was retired at the time. Whole chapter to John Madden, and I called it "Ode to a Teddy Bear."
mm,
John was screaming and yelling on the sideline, but he was like a teddy bear. If you'd go over and talk to him and settle him down, and just say, "Now, Coach, what can I do for you?" And that was a bad call. So I can say, "John, it's a call that I made. I'm doing the best I can with it." And he would walk away. We've been good friends for a long time.
amazing. Now, as tradition, anybody that is selected to the All Madden team also gets the leather jacket. And I'm sure you got yours. Do you still have it?
I do. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll put it on eBay. You can bid on it.
Oh, gosh. That's amazing.
It's a real honor to be on the All Man team. He doesn't do that anymore, but it was the first time, and I was delighted. In fact, when John Madden was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2006, which is about 12 years ago, he
Mm-hmm.
called me and invited me to go on at his expense to Canton, Ohio for the inductions. So I was there for the induction ceremonies that's
Mm.
going on this week as a guest of John Madden. What happened is it's not that special in the sense it is. I was the only official, but I drove to Oakland and flew on an airplane from Oakland to Green Bay, from Oakland to Canton, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
with about 300 of John's closest friends. He rented an airplane, an Airbus 320, and he had 300 people in that airplane that he had invited sports writers and family and friends and everybody. And I was honored to be part of that. So we've been good friends. I spoke at his roast when he retired. I spoke at his 50th birthday party. I
Mm-hmm.
spoke at his 60th birthday. He's just been a good friend and a wonderful man.
Mm, mm. Now, at any time during your career, did you ever ref any of the Thanksgiving games that he and Pat Summerall would call?
I did probably 7 or 8 Thanksgiving Day games in my career, and he was on a couple of them later on after he retired.
Mm-hmm.
And he and Pat were a great team, and I worked a lot of games that they did over the years. It's a great honor. He knew me, and of course knew me very closely, so he could comment on the air about me as the game
Mm-hmm.
was going on.
Now,
Yeah.
because the
He,
reason why I asked was because, again, another tradition of John Madden is at the end of the game, he'd have the big turkey with all the turkey legs around it, and the players from the winning team whether it be one, two people, or several, as like one year with Emmett Smith, and he had his whole offensive line there eating turkey. At one point, do you ever invite you down to have some of that leftover turkey?
Never invited me for the turkey dinner. I missed out on that one, Steve. That's the way it goes. That's just,
Oh, well.
yeah, that was
Uh,
fine. That's okay. When that game was over, I'm in an automobile going to the airport and getting home. I worked many games in Detroit for that Thanksgiving Day game and flew home to California and was in time for turkey dinner, apple for pumpkin pie after
mhm.
dinner. I made that a point to get home as soon as I could.
Now, in your career, outside of John Madden and his ranting and raving on the sidelines, what coaches do you remember was really like obnoxious to you when you made a bad call? Well, when they think you made a bad call against their offense or defense, who really got under your skin?
Nobody.
No?
Nobody got under my skin, but they did yell. There was a coach of Minnesota Vikings for the first few years named Norm Van Brocklin.
Uh-huh.
And Van Brocklin had a very cute way of putting words and phrases together, words that
Uh-huh.
I had never heard of, that he used to try to intimidate you. But I'll go back to the first game I worked was in the Los Angeles Coliseum
Mhm.
between the Chicago Bears and the Los Angeles Rams, and the coach of the Chicago Bears was George Halas.
Mhm.
George Halas invented the game. Meeting George Halas was like meeting Tom Edison. And he was a Wario guy and yelled and screamed at officials and cursed them out and all that sort of thing. But
Mhm.
when I worked the game, I was a field judge at that time, and I went to the visiting coach George Hallis and said, "Mr. Hallis, I need your captains." And before he gave me his captain, he said, "Let's see, your name is Tunney. Yes, sir, you went to Occidental College. You played football, basketball, baseball. You were an athlete." He knew me cold. He had studied me. And of course, I knew him because of the fame that he had in the whole National Football League. He was, in fact, in Canton, Ohio, the
Mhm.
name of the street that Canton, Ohio Hall of Fame is on is 2121 George Hallis Drive. So that's how important he was to the game of football. And meeting him on my first year, my first game, was an absolute thrill. And he yelled at me that game because things happen, but he always put his arm around me and say, "Now, Jimmy," he says, "not Jim anymore. Now, Jimmy."
Mhm.
He said, "Yeah, maybe have a tough call, but you'll get better," and so on. And he was always very encouraging to me, even though he'd yell at me during the game about something. He'd love to yell at officials.
Mm. Now, who had the foulest mouth? Bill Parcells or coach from the Bears that won,
Mike Ditka.
Mike Ditka? Yes.
Neither one for me, Steve. Mike Ditka would yell and scream, and I'd go over because I worked games when Mike was a player. I
Mhm.
was officiating when Mike came into the league from Pittsburgh, and so I knew him as a player and as an assistant coach and a coach. And he'd yell maybe at not at me or another official, and I'd go over and say, "Mike, now settle down, settle down. What can I do for you? So just take it easy." He was fine, and Bill Parcells was great. Yes, Bill got excited. And guys, if you don't have any emotion in this game, you ought to go sit in the press box because if you're on the sidelines, you're part of the team. You're leading that team, and sometimes things get away from you, and you get upset and yell at or scream. And I didn't bother me at all. They call me all kinds of names. Didn't bother me a bit. It's part of the. But you have to learn to be as an official. And first, when I was first officiating in high school, and
Mhm.
coaches would yell, Tunney this and Tunney that. I took it offensive, but they're really not yelling at you. They're yelling at that black and white striped shirt that you've got on,
Mhm.
and so at the end of the game, for example, George Hallis never called the league office on Monday morning to complain about officials. He
Mhm.
would yell at you during the game, but when the game was over, it was over. That's not the case with some coaches today. They'll call the league office and complain, see if they can get some kind of what they call a fair advantage, you know.
Mm. Now, coaches like Don Shula and Bill Walsh, those two look like the type where they didn't scream and yell at you, but they look like the type that they were smart enough to pull you to the side before a game and just run down everything from a player that you should watch out for. Do a lot of politicking. Were they like that?
Lots of coaches do that. I never heard that from Bill Walsh or from Don Shula. Both Walsh and Shula were really good on the side. Sure, they're emotional. Sure, they scream and holler and yell and things, and they'd like an explanation. If you made a call that they were upset about, and you went over and talked to them and explained to them, that was it. In fact, Coach Shula is a very good friend of mine now, and we do a lot of things together. Speak on cruises and around the country and things like that. And he said, I never won an argument from Jim Tunney. He always won the argument, but it's an emotional game, and players are that way too. Players get upset, and if you
Hmm.
just take it easy and you just control yourself, it's what I call personal power, not the position power. Now, hey, I'm the referee. You better pay attention to me. None of that. It's the fact that I believe in myself, believe what I do. Oh gosh, yes, I made mistakes, but quarterbacks throw interception, that's a mistake. Receivers drop passes, that's a mistake. Officials
Hmm.
are going to make mistakes. That's what happens.
Did you ever have to throw out a player for something other than a fight? Throwing a first punch or something. Let's say someone mouths off on you, okay? And I'm sure there were a lot of players that were trying to get up in your face. Did you have to throw out a player because of his words?
Only once, and that was Deacon Jones.
Really?
Deacon Jones of the Rams, and we became good friends after that. But he was upset about being held at the line of scrimmage by an offensive tackle,
Hmm.
and I said, Deacon, he was screaming, yelling at me, and calling me names. I said, wait a minute, settle down. He kept calling me, and I said, what did you say? And he said it, and he said it again, and I said, Deacon, you're gone. And that's
Wow.
the only one in 31 years I only thrown that one player out for that. And
Mm.
people don't go to the stadium to watch a player sit on the bench. They want the player on the field, and I felt that way. Keep on the field everything you can. Do everything you can to keep the player in the game. If you have to take an insult, take the insult, but don't try to outshow them. Don't try to think that you're better than they are, that you're the game. People don't go to the game to see officials. They go to the game to see the players. So keep them in the game.
You need to tell that to the NBA refs. You even as much as glare at them, you're gone. That's how sensitive those guys are. So maybe you can teach a class with those NBA refs as to how to have a little more patience and tolerance. They're crazy over there.
I did basketball, college basketball for 26 years,
Hmm.
and worked for Johnny Wooden at UCLA for 11 years when he was doing so well, and with Lou Alcindor, now Kareem, and of course John would never, Coach Wooden would never use bad language. He would Worst thing he ever says, "Oh my goodness," that was
Hmm.
that's about as good as he got. Never threw a college player out for words for language. Again, keep them in the game. Settle them down. So don't settle down. Make them have the coach take them out, but don't throw them out. Keep them in the game if you can.
Two of the more common calls that drives me nuts. You just mentioned holding at the line of scrimmage, and the other one is pass interference. Well, let's talk about holding. As you know, Jim, everybody holds. Okay. What, in your opinion, makes an offensive player draw the line? What makes them go over the edge and for you to call an offensive holding?
Trying to block a guy like Lawrence Taylor or Reggie White or J.J. Watt or somebody like that is almost impossible. And there are times that the arms get tangled up and it looks like holding. Often it's not holding, and holding by definition for an official to call holding is that you've got to take the defender out of his route. If he's on a route to the quarterback and
Right.
you pick him and pull him aside or throw him down, yeah, now you got holding. But the fact that your arms get tangled up, not really holding. As long as he's moving towards the quarterback, as long as he's moving in the path that he wants to move, he's okay. But just remember, the defensive guys probably can bench press 450 pounds. and they
Mhm.
might be dealing with a 250 or 60 pound lineman, so they're
Mhm.
pretty strong themselves, and they can throw them out of the way. So try not to the holding. If you gain an advantage by holding a player, pulling him down or taking him out of his route, yes, that's holding. But if it's not that, let it go. Let him play the game.
Mm. Now, pass interference. Back in the day when you refed, it wasn't so much emphasis on that as it is in today's game. And some of these pass interference calls today are outrageous. I don't understand it. It seems like every other call could be a pass interference. As you say, you got to let receiver against secondary play. I don't get it.
I don't get it either sometimes, Steve, as I watch it. It's a couple of things we did a long time early on in my career. We would allow a defensive man to knock a receiver down once he goes downfield. We
Hmm.
changed that rule about 40 years ago, and we said you have it's called bump and run. You can bump the receiver one time inside the 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. After 5 yards, you got to leave him alone. But
Hmm.
then they allowed what they call tactile tactile contact. I mean,
Hmm.
if you're a fast, you're a receiver who runs 4.340, and you're a defender who runs 4.340, and you're going downfield, that you see their hands touching each other back and forth and back and forth. If one of them gains an advantage to that by pushing a player off of his route or pulling a player down or holding a player, like we call an arm bar, where they would just hold him up, then we got pass interference or maybe defensive holding,
Hmm.
which is not pass interference until the ball is in the air. But these guys are so fast, both of them. It used to be you'd have a big, tough linebacker, so the guys like a Maxie Bond or somebody who played for the Philadelphia Eagles, big, tough linebackers. They couldn't run like that. Now they have little defensive guys are fast and and leap very high, but
Hmm.
the fact that they don't do anything other than touch the player, that's not pass interference. It's awfully tough to call. As a downfield official,
Hmm.
side judge, back judge, field judge, it happens so fast, and you were moving too. You're not standing still. You got to be
Exactly.
running. You got to be
Yes.
running with them, and you're running with them, and you got to then observe. Did one of those players in touching the other player gain an advantage, pull him down, or push him, or hold him up? And if they didn't, if it's just what we call, as they say, tactile contact, just touching each other, that's not a foul. We let that go. And we do, and the philosophy you mentioned before, and I mentioned it too. Let them play. Let them play the game.
Yes. Now, you did instant replay when you refed. Instant replay is a major part of football now. My gripe is that it takes too long for the refs in looking at the play to make a decision. And the reason why it bothers me is because I feel, or maybe I'm wrong, when the refs look inside that booth, aren't they seeing the same replay as we see on TV? Or are you guys seeing a different angle?
You're seeing most of it, but they are seeing another angle. The instant replay, the IR, the instant replay official in the booth can call for different angles from the television, and it's only what television has. If television doesn't have it, they don't
Hmm.
have another angle. They're not going to give it to you. And now in the last year and this year, you see more of it. The decision is made at what they call Command Central in New York
Hmm.
on Park Avenue. There's a in Command Central. There's a big room with dozen or so screens, and all the games are being observed by an official in that command center. And so now, when the official goes over to the sidelines and talks to the official in the booth, they're really also talking to the command center, to either the supervisor official or somebody who's
Hmm.
also making a decision. The decision now, more decisions uh, like that now see are made by the command center rather than the officials on the field. So it's going to get worse because in this year, in 2018, they have a new rule about targeting and the use of the helmet. They're trying to eliminate the use of the helmet. and
Mhm.
you almost can't. When you dive your shoulder into somebody to make a tackle, your
Mhm.
head's part of it. You can, and sometimes head to head, they want to eliminate the helmet to helmet contact, and the league office now, the command center, can make a decision if it is targeting, as they have in college. You can be ejected from the game if you drive your helmet, particularly the crown of your helmet, into the helmet of the defender, of the running back, or the receiver.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a tough one because it happens so quickly,
It
so
does.
quickly.
You're right.
Yeah,
You
and
are
and
right. Mm.
the players are coached by the coach. You got to go after the player. Don't just try to tackle him. Just go ahead and knock him down. It's what I call Terminator football. They just try to blast through you. And you
Mhm.
see with the quarterbacks. I mean, I worked for quarterbacks like Bart Starr and Johnny Unitas and all those guys through the years, and they didn't tackle the quarterback the way they're doing now. They used to just grab them and pull them down. Now they actually just run through them fast, and they're big and strong. These defensive guys are, 6'7", 6'8", and 285 pounds, so they run fast. And boy, they really come after those quarterbacks and really blast you down.
Mhm. In your career, especially back in the days of the Steel Curtain, the Purple People Eaters back then, and other great defensive teams, who, in your opinion, was a dirty player?
I don't think there was anybody who was dirty. They were very vicious people. I remember talking to Dick Muskus one time after we were both finished our careers.
Mhm.
I said, Dick, I call him Richard. I said, Richard, did you ever intentionally hurt another player? He said, no, 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 unless it was at a game or something. And they really are tough, and a lot of players today are like that. And I don't see them as dirty. Conrad Dobler, who played for the St. Louis Cardinals, is accused of biting and grabbing people and doing
Mhm.
things like that, and he
Right.
did. He did that, but most of the time, there's a unwritten rule in football. If you do something that's really outlandish, really illegal and dirty, we'll get you. We'll get you. We'll come after you with two guys and knock you right on your back. So the dirtiness doesn't take place so much anymore, and there's a respect among players now, and that's one of the things that I wrote in the book. It's the will, not the skill. This
Mhm.
is a game of respect. You don't go dancing in the end zone or showing off, and
Mhm.
and show a lack of respect for your opponent. But that's not what this game is all about. This game is one of respect. It's a gentleman's game, but boy, those are tough gentlemen out there, Steve. They're tough people.
That's a good point. They said Mean Joe Green. He got his name because he was vicious and mean and did stuff. Did you ever consider him to be a dirty player?
Never considered Joe to be a dirty player. In fact, I never called him Mean Joe Green. He was the captain of the Steelers, and Gene Upshaw was the captain of the Raiders. And we had, so in the '70s, a lot of tough
Mhm.
battles between the Raiders and the Steelers. And whenever it got to where they were pushed and fighting and things like that, I'd
Mhm.
go to Joe or I'd go to Gene Upshaw and I'd say, "Now look, you take care of your players, or I will. If I do it, they're going to be gone. You take care of it." And they were always the kind of guy to say, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. They go to the player and settle him down. And I have the utmost respect for Joe Green. I never considered it mean. He was mean because people saw the kind of viciousness with which he played. Played hard, played, but
Mhm.
never dirty. I've never saw him punch anybody or do anything illegal on the field. Always, but very, very physical.
That's very interesting. I'm sure he'll be glad to hear you say that because they gave him a bad reputation. Well, the players anyway, the ones that were the victim of his tackles and stuff. So they weren't too crazy about him there.
I wish you had a chance to meet him because he's a very gentle man. I remember not only he played, but then he coached sometime and had a lot of conversation with Joe, and he was wonderful to get along. Good on the field, and he showed respect for the other team. Played hard. Oh yes, played hard, and knock you on your back best you can. But he was never dirty.
Mm. Now, let's talk about some games that you were involved in. Well, the first one, the Ice Bowl. Dallas said Green Bay, where it was minus 15 degrees. Now, you were an alternate referee. Now, does that mean you were on the field or were you upstairs ready to be called at any time, or how did that work?
That was my first game in the referee position. I was a field judge before that, and they
Hmm.
moved me to the referee position. And as a first year person in a new position, I didn't expect to get the assignment, but
Hmm.
I get the assignment. And no, I stood on the sidelines. Along my assignment was on the Green Bay Packers side, so I stood alongside of Coach Lombardi and the Green Bay Packer team. In fact, what really happened is it got so cold they had these warmer blowers on the sidelines where the heat
Hmm.
was coming out. And
Right.
anytime I could, I stood over by the heat. It was really cold. We didn't have any Gore-Tex then. We just had mittens and long johns. And in fact, when we got to Green Bay, the whole crew got to Green Bay Saturday night. It was
Hmm.
beautiful. The moon was out, clear sky, and the
Hmm.
next day the drop. We had didn't have any kind of equipment. We went downtown at 7:30 Sunday morning and knocked on the door of the Army Navy store. And I remember it was December 31st, so it was the end
Right.
of the year, and the manager was in there doing inventory. Had
Hmm.
it not been December 31st, he wouldn't have been there. That store would have been closed. We knocked on the door, and he said, go away, closed." We said, we're working the game. We gotta have. We went in and bought as much long johns and mittens. I had 3 pair of mittens on. Still didn't work. And my job on the sidelines was to keep track of the down and the distance to be sure that we didn't get a mark off a penalty of 10 yards, of 11 yards instead of 10, or mark off going in the wrong direction. So those things can happen during a game. But and my job was to follow that along the line of scrimmage. And I was standing next to Bart Starr and Vince Lombardi when Starr came over and ran that quarterback sneak, and he came over because he ran it on the third down,
Hmm.
and he didn't make it. And he came over to call timeout. And
Hmm.
he came over. He said to Lombardi, I was standing right there. He said, Coach, I think we can make that same over Jerry Kramer on the right side, that sneak quarterback sneak. And
Hmm.
Lombardi said, well, let's do it and get the hell out of here. It's cold out here. So he
Wow.
he made it and it was over and they won the game. It was a historic game. It's 1967, so we're talking about
Hmm.
what 51 years ago. My goodness, that seems like yesterday.
And you're still thawing out of it, right?
My fingers are still cold. Uh, some officials had the whistle stick to their lips. They pulled the whistle off
Mm.
and the skin came off their lips. It was frightening to watch. Hard for the officials to run on the field,
Mhm.
and hard, of course, for the players, guys like Horning or Danny Reeves for the Cowboys. Hard for them to turn the corner on a slippery field like that, ice.
I can imagine. The field must have been rock solid. It's like playing on cement. That's how
It
cold that
was.
was.
That's exactly right. Yes, it was
Oh my.
very slippery. Yeah, good game though,
Yes.
and we still have. In fact, going into the Hall of Fame this weekend is Jerry Kramer, who was
Hmm.
the guy that made the block that put Bart Starr across the goal line and made the winning, great winning touchdown that won the game.
Yes. Now, January 10th, 1982, the game known as the Catch.
Yeah, great
Uh,
game.
yeah, the late Dwight Clark catching the pass back of the end zone from Montana to win the game. My question to you was, where were you positioned when the catch was made?
My job as a referee is to follow the quarterback. So as Montana rolled out to the right, he kept rolling and rolling. And as long as he got to sideline, I stayed right with him. And just as he threw the ball,
Hmm.
and Too Tall Jones, the Cowboys flattened Montana, legal
Hmm.
tackle, but knocked him down. So I'm looking down at Jones and Joe Montana. I didn't see the catch at all. In fact, Joe didn't see the catch at all either. And Joe looked up to me and said, "What happened?" I said, "You threw it in the stands." He said, "What?" I said, "No, Dwight caught it." And it's a famous game called the catch, and there's only 3 people in it. Actually, 4: Clark and Montana and too tall, and me.
Mm,
The great, great. You get a lot of questions about that. They're honoring Dwight. Unfortunately, as you know, Dwight passed away
yes.
a few months ago, and they're having a great ceremony for Dwight um, tomorrow. As a matter of fact, August
Mm.
1st.
He
He
was
was
a
a
hell of
great
a
guy.
receiver. I tell you, that was one of the great catches in NFL history, especially
Yeah,
to
well,
finish off the game, because that was a great game. And it came down to the wire, and it came to have such a great play like that catch.
yep, 45 seconds left, and Joe made that throw. And in fact, it's not called the catch; it's called the throw. Montana calls it the throw. It's not the catch; it's the throw. Okay, Joe, we'll give you that one. But no, and Dwight Clark is. I really enjoyed Dwight on the field. Somebody said when you saw Dwight Clark, that's what you got. He was the most real human being I've ever met. Somebody said, I think Roger Craig said that, and I would agree. He was just a good guy in the pressures of the game and at the height of the battle. Dwight always had a smile on his face. He was just happy that he made the team, and none of them made the team. He was just terrific at what he did. So he was a wonderful man. We're sorry that the ALS disease really took him.
Yes, God rest his soul. January 17th, 1988, the game known as the fumble. I remember this very well. This was Ernest Biner fumbling within the last 2 minutes of the game that would most likely would have sealed the win for Cleveland, and it's just a devastating loss. Now, at that time, where were you positioned on that one?
Well, again, I'm behind the quarterback, Bernie Kosar, and so I hand off to Ernest Biner. And of course, Biner's back is to me, so I didn't see the ball come loose till it hit the ground. But downfield officials saw it, and the field judge jumped right on it and saw that Denver had recovered the fumble and moved the other way. But just before that, Kosar, the quarterback, called timeout, and
Mm-hmm.
he went over to talk to Marty Schottenheimer, the coach of the Browns. And when he came back to the huddle before he ran the play, I said, "Does it do any good, Bernie, to go over and talk to Coach about these things?" And just kidding him. This is the height of the game and the pressure's on it. I'm having a good time. And I said, he said, "No, it doesn't help me. It doesn't help, but it makes him feel better when I do that." So he
Yeah.
he handed off, and Ernest fumbled the ball, and it's too bad because. And the first thing that the players did, and I think this was great of the Cleveland Browns, first thing that they did is they are surrounded Ernest and said, "Hey, it can happen to anybody. Don't feel that you lost the game. It's a fumble. It's a fumble. It's all over. Don't worry about it." And when Denver recovered, they had only a short time to win the game, and that was John Elway. I worked both those games. They had a game in Cleveland the year before,
Yeah, so
and
remember that long drive, that famous drive that Elway led him down the field and a touchdown there and pretty much sealed it. And
you're good. You're good. Do you remember exactly? It's called the drive, and John, I've known since high school. John took the team right down there. I mean, John was a winner all the way. He was great on the field. We had a lot of fun on the field, talked to each other. I've known him for a long time, and we could kid and things back and forth. In those days, it was different than now. It's all so much business now. It's a very important game. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, somebody's going to get fired because of the loss. But it was a game, Steve, and I always enjoyed having fun with the players and talking to them, talking to a Montana or an Elway or Marino or Jim Kelly or people because I'm with the quarterback the whole time, and that's my guy. When the quarterback runs the sidelines, I go to the sidelines. He runs it, I go on. I just stay wherever he is. He's very important to the team, and that was my job is to see that nothing illegal happened to him. Maybe after the play or somebody threw an elbow besides making a tackle. And that was my job in staying with the quarterback. And I took to start with Bart Starr and Johnny Unitas and go all the way up to Marino and Kelly and Elway and Montana. Listen, I couldn't ask for a better life.
I can believe that. Now, here's the one that I remember very well. This game was hysterical to me. The Fog Bowl. Eagles and the Bears in Soldier Field. by the mid third quarter, we at home watching it. I can't see nothing. What
It's
was it
kind of
like
like
for you?
yeah, it's kind of like driving your car in the fog. If your
Yeah.
headlights raise up, you're blinded and you can't see anything. But on the field, we could see, and we could from time to time we could see the end of the field. There were times when I couldn't see the other goalpost. But if you think about it, football's only played about from the line of scrimmage about 20, 10 yards on either side. In fact, Randall Cunningham, who was the quarterback of the Eagles who lost the game, Randall set a
Right.
new passing record, 404 yards he passed during that game in the fog. And people say well, nobody could see. Well, Randall could see it. His receivers could see it. Ron Johnson, Anthony Tunney, they played for the Eagles at that time, and they could see. We had it was a great game. The first half was fine, and she said the third quarter got a little foggy, and that's why Vern Lundquist and Terry Bradshaw were doing the game, and Bradshaw came down on the field
Mhm.
and could because you couldn't see from up in the booth because of the stadium lights were flying shining on top of the fog and
Mhm.
bouncing right back. So like you at home, you couldn't see, but on the field we could see. In fact, after the game, I did what they call what was known as the first live interview from the official after the game, live on television. I did one for CBS, and then I did one for NBC. NBC guy was Jim Gray, and you
Mhm.
remember Jim Gray. Jim was a great friend. I've known Jim a long time, and
Mhm.
he interviewed me, and he said to me we were in the locker room afterward. He said, I was on the field and I couldn't see the goalpost. And I said, Jim, I said, I could see it. That's why you're a reporter and I'm a referee. I could see that goalpost. And we've had a good time with that ever since.
I remember the post game interview in the locker room, and Buddy Ryan was not a happy camper. And the question, I forgot who interviewed him, but the question to me was like, is to say, Buddy, what happened? And I'm like, what kind of question is that? You don't see what happened? You know,
Yeah.
he had a hard time getting the words out. He was that angry, and I didn't blame him.
You ever know Buddy Riley wasn't angry?
Yeah, I know. I know. He was another coach I mean, that I totally forgot about. God rest his soul. But did you ever have problems with him?
Well, before the game, I went to halftime when he came out and the fog had come in. I
Mm,
went to Buddy and I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Yeah, the fog is the same on both sides of the ball. Let's play." So I went over to Mike Ditka of the Bears and said, "Mike, what are you gonna do?" He said, "Let's play." Buddy wants to play. I'll play. Let's just play. Let's just keep the game going. And
mhm,
if you think about it, we really had to keep the game going. That was a Saturday.
mhm,
It was a Saturday, again, December 31st. It was a Saturday, and
mhm,
if we didn't play it, if we
mhm.
stopped it, we certainly couldn't play it the next day. There were two more football games being played that day,
True.
and then because it was uh, this January 1st on a Sunday, they moved all the bowl games, the college bowl games, to Monday. So we
Mhm,
couldn't play on Monday because all the bowl games were playing. So if you waited and played it on Tuesday, whoever won was going to have to play 4 or 5 days later, and they couldn't do that. So we had to play the game. And we've always said in football, rain, snow, fog,
That's right.
play the game, play the
That's it.
game.
Play the game.
Yeah.
Now, I read this one and I was like laughing because when you watch it, you're not even thinking about referees and all like that. And you were the referee for like 8 editions of the Battle of the Network Stars. That must
I
have
worked.
been hilarious.
I loved it. I did 14. They had 18 battles,
Oh,
and I did
18.
14 of them, and they were just great athletes from the ABC and CBS and NBC, and they battled it out, playing most of the time at Pepperdine University
Right.
in Malibu, and you're overlooking Malibu and the ocean. It's a pretty nice setting. These athletes, both men and women from the networks, were very highly competitive. They really wanted to win, and but they were fun and fun to do. And I really had a nice break in doing the Battle Network stars, as I did Superstar competitions several times, and those are great athletes. But the Battle Network stars was a fun time to do. I really enjoyed that.
I'll tell you, two fierce competitors, actors. One was Robert Conrad. If anybody remember him from the famous Wild Wild West, he was a tough guy because he was an amateur boxer, and I remember that. And he very tough guy, and very fierce. Never liked to lose. Never liked to lose at all.
Well, the football sequences that we played with the Battle Network stars was flag football.
Hmm.
And Bob Conrad came to me and said, "Well, let's play tackle. I want to play tackle football." I said, "Yeah, you just want to tackle the girls. That's all you want
There
to
you go. There you go.
do." And he was a tough competitor. He was very fiery on the field.
Yes, and the other one, the other fierce one, was Mr. T, who everybody knows was B.A. Baracus
Oh
on the
yeah,
main team. He was another one,
yeah.
but he played football in college.
He did. He did. He's a good athlete. Yeah. Uh-huh. He can move around. Of course, as a boxer, he can move his feet pretty good too. So
Hmm.
he moved around pretty good. And we had some good athletes and some good women athletes too that were just that they were very competitive. Catherine Bach and Heather Locklear, a lot of the girls, Suzanne Summers, were great
Oh
people. I've
yeah, I
seen them.
remember. Yes,
They
yes,
were
yes.
terrific. It
Yeah,
was a challenge being out there for somebody. I
I'm
enjoyed it.
sure. Well, you did 18 of them, so definitely you enjoyed it a lot. So.
Every time. They didn't pay much, but it was fun to be around there. It was fun to do it.
Yes, yes, but I saw that and I was like, oh my God. You know, because they don't talk about who's refereeing. Were you ever interviewed on air? Because I don't even remember you.
There were several times that the announcers were Frank Gifford, Howard Cosell, people like that. So I spent a lot of time off the camera with Frank and with Howard. And then there were several times when a decision had to be made about a runner dropping a baton in a race or a
Hmm.
swimmer not touching the side, and I had to make the decision. And I've been on camera several times to do that. The guy who put it all together is a guy named Howard Katz, who
Hmm.
worked for Transworld International, and Howard dictated and said to the guys, interviewed Tunney, the referee, get his opinion on this. And so it was fun to do. Yeah, always a good challenge.
Great. Now, June 1st, 2015, you and Ben Dreef were the only referees from the 1970 season. Now, this was the first season following the AFL NFL merger, and you are the only two still alive, which God bless. My question is, at that time of the merger, and I had asked this question to Don Horn, who played in Super Bowl II, backing up Bart Starr. What was your opinion of the merger? Were you in favor of it? How did you see this?
Well, the AFL started in 1960, as you know,
Hmm.
and but I was working in college ranks at that time in what they call the Pacific Coast Conference. They call it the Pac-12 now.
Hmm.
But the supervisor officials for the AFL, a guy named Bob Austin,
Hmm.
called me in February and he said, I'm coming to LA next week. I'd like to interview you to move to the pro ranks and work for in the AFL.
Hmm.
And I see I'll be honored. And 2 days later, Mike Wilson from the NFL called and said, I know that the AFL contacted you. Don't sign any contract with them. I'm coming to LA. I want to interview you. So I had a choice to go to either AFL or NFL. And I'd seen the old All American Conference fold. I thought maybe the AFL was going to make it. So I went to the NFL. But there was a lot of animosity, not from officials and even not from players, but from owners and the commissioner. Al Davis was a first commissioner or one of the commissioners in the AFL and had the Oakland Raiders, and he was suing the Pete Rozelle in the NFL and many times, and there was a lot of uneasy feeling. But after a while, we thought the officials that they had were good, and when they merged like that, then we We all became one family, and we didn't work in the AFC or the NFC. We worked in both of them. We
Hmm.
worked, but when the AFL started, I never worked in the NFL. AFL, I only worked in the NFL, and it was great. And then when he first came in, the NFL still considered the AFL kind of a junior league. They weren't really up to speed uh, because they didn't have all the first class players. The first class players were, were drafted by the NFL. But
Hmm.
over the years, they merged together, and the AFL officials, the NFL officials came together as one brotherhood. It was good feeling.
Mm. One of the final questions I have for you before I let you go, and this has been an honor talking to you. Your opinion of the whole kneeling with the national anthem, and with this whole thing started a couple of years ago with Colin Kaepernick and everything, and it caused such an uproar around the league. What was your first reaction, your opinion about that?
There was a time, Steve, when the players stayed in the locker room for the national anthem during Pete Rozelle's era, and they were in the locker room most of the time, and only the officials were on the field with the anthem and the bands and all that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And then they decided that they like to have the players out there, whether it was a solidarity thing or whatever. Well, my only concern with kneeling and not standing there with your hand over your heart is that you're getting paid for that time. You're an employee. It's
Hmm.
like somebody working for you in your studio, and they say you might be going on the air, Steve, but I'm going to go out and protest something right now. We say, wait a minute, you're getting paid for this. You're my employee. You stay here with me. I need you. And so I think it's a matter of disrespect, not so much for the flag, because that's not what they're disrespecting. They're trying to call attention to social injustice, and I applaud them for that. That's fine. But do it on their time, or do it on a time when it doesn't involve you in the employee of something else. But if you're my employee, I have a right to say, within reason, what you need to be doing. And as a team, solidarity, it breaks down solidarity if some players are doing one thing and the other players are doing something else. So I think it'll be a tough season for them teams. Tough for people to put their personal prejudice aside and just say, listen, we're a team now. If you want to protest on your day off on Tuesday, go protest. You want to do it after hours, go protest. That's fine. But when you're under my employ, I'd like you to do what I say. So I'd like them to all stand there with their hand over their heart and salute the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem as they for the game.
I totally agree. My thing is this: if you want to protest, go right ahead, but don't do it in a place where you work. Don't do it in the uniform that you are employed in, and when the owner's signature is on your paycheck. You know,
we
bottom line, that's what it's about. I totally agree.
we're
Because
in agreement. Yep.
I thought it was a joke.
Yep.
The Hall of Fame inductions is this weekend.
Yes.
Terrell Owens will not be there for his own induction. I think he's a moron. And how can he get any respect from his peers and from the league because of his actions?
The reason I understand that T.O. is not going there is that he was eligible for induction 2 years ago.
Mhm.
After you're off the field for 5 years, you're eligible. At the
Right.
end of his fifth year, he was eligible. He didn't get elected in 2016 or 2017, and now he's pouting because he didn't get elected. He waited 3 years. Lynn Swan waited 17.
Hmm.
Jerry Kramer has waited 45 and he's
Yes.
only waited three. It's a childish act on Teal's part, and I didn't have much respect for him for the kind of manners that he had on the field anyway. Oh, sure, he could catch a pass. That's wonderful. But Steve, I've been around the league for 60 years, 50, 60 years now. There are a lot of guys who can catch passes. T.O. is great at what he did, but it has to be part of his character too. And his character is very childish at this point. I'm sorry that he's doing this.
It's a shame, and I said this. I just said it tonight with my first guest. I said the bottom line: they should take the NFL should come to an agreement, take his Hall of Fame bus and chuck it in the garbage. He is not, that bus is not welcome inside the halls of Canton.
I'd certainly agree to that. Yeah, I don't think they'll do that, but they're
No,
not going
no.
to mention him in the ceremony in Canton when they induct the other seven players, but and the other people. But I'm pleased that some of the people that made it like a Jerry Kramer who waited 45 years or that great Packer team. But it's hard for the committee to evaluate a guard. How do you the number of blocks he makes or whether he misses? You can measure a receiver number of catches or running back the number of yards or quarterback the number of passes. Hard to measure what a guard. They do have guards and tackles and defensive people in there, but it's Mateo has some great catches, but uh, as somebody said to me the other day, he had great hardware but bad software. So it, he's not thinking clearly, and unfortunately, he's put himself in a very precarious position.
Yes. Now, you also are in a Hall of Fame. In 2011, you were inducted into the California Community Coaches Hall of Fame. So
Yes,
you do have some Hall of Fame status. When are they going to start acknowledging referees in the NFL Hall?
I write a weekly column, and the last column I wrote last Monday was just about that. And they've never had an on-field official from the NFL in the Hall of Fame. They do in basketball in the NBA, they do in the NHL, they do in Major League Baseball, they do in boxing, but they've never had one in football. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why an official has not been recognized. My goal, and I've been nominated 15 times now, my goal is to hopefully somebody will get in, break the ice, and let them recognize that professional football officiating is a profession,
Hmm.
and it's the same as a player or a coach or a general manager or an owner. You're part of the team. You can't play the game without them. You
Yeah.
can't play the game without the officials. And so, why can't they recognize that official has a right to be considered for the Hall of Fame? But they haven't done that yet. They haven't seen the 46 members of the selection committee haven't seen any way clear to do
Well, I truly believe you'll be the first.
that. Well,
I,
you're very kind.
I,
You're very
I
kind.
truly
I
believe that.
enjoyed my career.
And one last question. You did this for 31 years. What was your motivation behind 31 years of refereeing NFL games through snow, rain, sleet, even great weather, having to put up with coaches and players, stuff? What is your motivation and reasoning behind your success? And how
I
do
guess
you
I'll.
encourage others?
Well, I guess I'll answer your question with a question. How'd you like to go to work every day and work with the best people in the world at what they do? And that's what I did on Sunday afternoons or Monday night. I worked 25 Monday night games. I work with the best people in the world at what they do. And how do you like to work with those people every time you walk in the field? And that was an honor for me. You to put up with all the travel and the missing of the family and not being home with your kids on Saturday or Sunday for 31 years from August to December to into January. It was just a great honor for me. In fact, when I decided to retire at 31 years, my family said, "Why? Why don't you work? Why don't you work? Why don't you work another year?" My number on the football field, my uniform was number 32. I was given that in 1960, and I had
Mm,
the 31 years of 32. And my kids said, "Why don't you do 32 like your number 32?" I said, "Nobody cares how many he got. I just love doing it." And it got to the point where I was doing a lot of other things, and so I decided to retire from it. But I loved it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat if I could run anymore. Can't run now,
mhm.
but I just enjoyed the players, the coaches tremendously.
On that note, Jim, this was an honor. You're
Oh,
the first ref that I've ever had on this show, and I couldn't wait to have you on because you just opened up a whole new line of questions I needed to be asked in turn that I needed to ask in regards to refereeing in today's game and what it was like when you refed. But this was fun. You are welcome on Sports Tuesday anytime. And
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope you have a good day and the rest of the evening. Thank you.
the book is entitled "It's the Will, Not the Skill." Where can people get it?
They're probably on my website, www.jimtunney, Tunney, jimtunney.com, and other products. I've written 13 books, so
Hmm.
the other books and products, and I have a bobblehead even on there. They can order jimtunney.com, or they can order that on PayPal or whatever they want to do.
All
I
right.
appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, and take care, and God bless.
Have a good evening. Bye
You
now.
too now. Sports Nation. That was Jim, known as the Dean of NFL Referees. 31 years of refereeing in the NFL from 1960 to 1990. And you heard him all the different experiences, and it was amazing. Amazing man in a sport where violence is preached. Really, violent game, but a gentleman. So that was great. That was great. I had a great time. That is it for me. This was a great show tonight. My annual Sports Tuesday NFL Hall of Fame show. And that is it. That is it for me. So until next week, as I always say, be good and be safe. Take care, everybody.
Get at me for beats, yo.